Hey, who wants to live life on their own terms? Well, welcome to Fire Your Boss Fridays. This ain't your average sugar-coated pep talk, people. I'm Chad. I'm here to deliver a dose of raw truth with the compassion of someone who's been in the trenches with you. Alongside me here is my ride or die, Lisa. She's the voice that cuts through the noise with the questions and topics that hit you right where it counts. Now, we're here to rally all the dreamers who've been duped by the shiny allure of the so-called normal life. We're here to rise up and reclaim what is yours, steal your life back, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose. Now, today, Lisa is bringing a very interesting topic from someone very well known in the community of money and real estate, and that happens to be Grant Cardone. So, Lisa, open the show for us today with that.
So an article popped up in my newsfeed this morning, and the title was Grant Cardone shares 10 steps to becoming a self-made millionaire.
All right.
So I thought this was interesting because, we'll dive into the topics, but it brings up some very interesting points of, steps people need to take.
When I looked at the article, she just sent it over to me, by the way, and she's like, "This is hot. I want to check it out. I think our listeners will really dig this." So, and we want to share it with you. And we have some insight too that we want to go on. And I know Lisa does because she brought it to my attention. She's like, "This is something we can play with." So, in this, I know what really hits me is like the things that he's saying to get out of. Right. But where do you want to start this for you? Because I really want to make this about what you're getting from this article that you read. What's the thing that people can expect us to be like talking about in this article? What's the big thing? Becoming a millionaire, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Just kind of going down his 10 steps, I think I would like to just touch on each one of them. And the first one being that you need to decide to be a multimillionaire, not just a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. So he's kind of talking about, don't limit yourself, don't set your sights too low. You kind of want to overshoot it, not undershoot.
Right. Shoot for the stars, land on the clouds kind of thing. I remember watching an interview with Cardone on this as well, where he was specifically saying that it was his wife that really gave him the motivation to create this particular number one thing. This is number one on his list, by the way. You have to decide. And this is commitment, too. So he hadn't actually committed to it, but his wife says, listen, we got work to do. We need to commit. And this is the way I remember it. Don't quote me, but if you guys want to comment below or post that link or whatever if you find it. But I think it's a big deal. What do you see, Lisa? Commitment, right? That's a commitment to yourself, right?
Right.
But also dream big. And we talk about this all the time. People aren't dreaming big enough. And what happens when you don't dream big enough is when something gets hard, it's like, it's not worth it. I'm going to turn back. Well, of course you're going to turn back. You kind of have a shit dream. It's not big enough, right? If it's going to cost you half of your life's worth of time and sacrifice from whatever it is you're sacrificing, so you have to give up something in trade for this thing, right? Better make it worth it. Right. So dream big, guys. I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
But I also think there's an aspect of, if you do set your sights on, because he's saying he throws out the number 10 million, 20 million, right?
Okay.
But I think with that, there's also that aspect of a potential downside, where if you don't hit that, fairly quickly, which most people aren't going to, it could be discouraging.
Like you feel like a failure, like I let myself down with my expectations, right? Yeah, we definitely play around with that as well. So what do we do to combat that, Lise? I mean, in all fairness, we're trying to do both at the same time, right? Not be too hard on ourselves, but again, set high goals, right? Like shooting and going for it.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, I think, if I apply that to myself, because as you know, I've got goals, and in my goal, I don't have 10 or 20 million. So when I was reading this, I'm like, do I need to up my goal?
Right.
And then knowing myself, I kind of feel like I would get discouraged if I didn't get there real quickly.
Right.
So, or is it completely mindset? And if I create that as a goal, am I going to get there?
Oh, that's heavy. That's heavy, right? Because you can't.
Is it that simple? Is it that
Well, in the
easy?
world of manifesting, right, that which is going left and right and all around the internet right now in our esoteric teachings, even biblical, where if you can't picture the destination, you can't go to it. Like if it doesn't exist
Right.
in your own
Hmm.
mind and soul, you can't even go there. It doesn't exist to you. And this is about breaking limiting beliefs, right? And saying, well, maybe I never thought I was capable of that. So I just never thought I would
Hmm.
make it a goal because that seems silly. And that's a dangerous, place to go because there's fear right away, like of failure. But let's just say it really comes down to the timeline. And I've heard people talk about this before. It's not that you won't reach the thing. So remember, let's say it's a dollar amount or a multimillionaire or whatever the thing is, right? Could be anything. What if you just didn't have a specific timeline? Like you just said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing said thing. I'm going after this thing that's going to be so big, and if I even hit the halfway mark, I'll feel like I lived a life full of purpose, right? A meaningful life. And so maybe that's it. You're
Hmm.
actually supposed to double it, right? Because you just go after the double it version, and within your soul that if you made it halfway, you're like, you know what, we did pretty good, man. You know, and so maybe that's part
Yep.
of it, right? It's not a timeline like next month, which works in business for sure. You need deadlines, but the big goal, the big dream, right? The end thing, the end
Hmm.
result. So, it's heavy though. See, you threw a little monkey wrench in there, being the devil's advocate, right? Because it does go both ways. Well, hopefully for you
Right.
listeners, I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that, or if you've learned anything about something like that before, please post it. We'd love to dig into it a little deeper. But that's our take on it, Lisa and I, and setting goals. So, Lisa, what are you going to do now? What's the action steps, right? Are you going to maybe revisit this space or
Yeah, I'm tearing down my action board and,
oh,
throwing up the twenty
oh,
million on there.
whoa, just rip it right off the wall. Oh man, we're doubling it. Cha-ching, cha-ching. So, well, cool. Maybe it is healthy to do that. Maybe it is healthy to expand the mind, expand the imagination, expand the universe in a sense, because that's the universe you're going to play in, is the playground that you present to
Right.
yourself. So, huh. Well, there might be something there to play with. So let's see how it goes for her. And I've already kind of entertained this, and I've been doing it actually the last couple days. And I'll share a really quick story. I actually wrote in my journal, dream big or FOMO, right? So this whole dream big or fear of missing out, you're going to miss out if you don't dream big, because that's the kind of the catch, is that if you didn't go for something big, you're not going to get the big thing because you're not even going for it, which we talked about. But then also you're certainly not going to get it. If you don't think about it ever happening, certainly isn't just going to magically happen. And if it does, that's a freak in nature. I mean, I'm almost 50, you know, I've had some pretty big aspirations, and stuff doesn't always just like technically land in your lap, but I certainly think the mindset plays a big role in that, because you're just, let's use a house remodel, for example. If I know the result of the house remodel is going to be like luxury, I'm certainly going to make decisions based on the end result that I want. I might have to cut corners, great, but in the end, I want that to be this higher level of home, right? So that's an expectation on
Hmm.
the same level as like I'm going to make decisions based on getting to that goal versus like, I'm not going to worry about, because you could just say, just make it livable. You could let's say that, which are we doing that with our lives and our goals and our dreams? Are we saying, they're pretty good, they're livable, they're exciting, or are we saying no, luxury?
Right.
We want the wow factor. You want to live an extraordinary life, you got to do extraordinary things. So,
Absolutely.
great intro topic, Grant Cardone. Thank you. All right, what do we got up next on the chopping block here?
Next is stop all poverty behavior.
This
So,
is the one I've been waiting
yeah,
for.
I think we'll spend a good amount of time on this one. So, his examples of poverty behavior are things such as drugs, alcohol, not investing but spending, wasting weekends, government dependence or dependence on others, shortcuts, victim mentality, not reading, refusing to network, and refusing to get outside one zip code and travel.
That's poverty behavior, according to Grant Cardone. All right, so top two. Come on, guys. Drugs, alcohol. Where have we heard this before? Anyone else hear their mom right now? Yeah, so those are big ones. But why?
Well,
Right?
for me, I'm
Why?
like looking at it like, am I guilty of any of these poverty behaviors?
Right,
And so
right. Shortcuts?
shortcuts, yes.
Shortcuts. Think about it. Everybody wants a shortcut. What's the hack? How do I do this without doing the
Well, and
work?
another big one for me
Grant Card.
is refusing to network. Like I'm, me.
Well, they're for you. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like a good network meeting, me not so much.
Yeah, I'm like, there. Everyone's like, "Where's Lisa at the network meeting?" Oh, yeah, it's something this or another, whatever. Yeah, you're not interested. Wow. So you're, according to Grant Cardone, you're networking away from becoming a multimillionaire.
Right?
That's crazy. Wasting weekends. What's a wasted weekend though, right?
Yeah.
Like as long as we've set. Now let's back up for a minute before we go into these stop all poverty behavior. If you have like a goal, a real goal, and we're kind of speaking to entrepreneurs here, guys. This podcast is not just for Joe Schmoes, okay? This podcast is for people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. Fire your boss, get out there and do it. So I'm speaking your language. Your language is I've got to become this version that I see myself being in my mind. And so have we set our goals? Have we set our priorities? Have we developed our liabilities and assets within ourself and our environment? These are those things. According to the way that we teach it, these are the liability list, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, these things are not helping you get to the thing you want.
Right.
And in our world, that's a liability. That is not an asset helping us get to the thing we want. And so when he says stop all poverty behavior, all I think in my mind is these things are liabilities and they are hindering my ability. And let's just say Grant's wrong on 8 of these. Right? What do we got? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got 10, right? Let's say he's wrong on 8 of 10. And you could become a multimillionaire. Why take the chance? And what one of these really is serving you?
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's not a liability, which one is actually serving you well, right? Making you have better relationships, bringing in the income, moving you closer to your goals. Like maybe it's not maybe it's not a full liability and hurting you, but it's certainly not an asset.
Right. Well, I think each one of these has their own, reasons, and it is bigger than just, being a multimillionaire. It's just achieving excellence in your life in general. A lot of these, are just,
right.
Let's say you don't have goals or dreams to be a millionaire or a multimillionaire, but outside of that, there's, so many of those that are just important just in general that you shouldn't be doing drugs. And I'm not even talking recreational. I'm talking, a lot of the prescription medications even,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Alcohol.
Well, that's that.
Of course, alcohol's like on the regular. Yeah, you want to have a glass of wine or something, whatever. But and I guess there's some aspect of it. Are you drinking alcohol to the point where you're not getting out of bed in the mornings because you're hungover, or you become sloppy drunk, or you get in fights, or you get sad, where it's really affecting you, it's not serving you.
Well, our money problems is $30 for
right.
Just a casual buzz anymore, even at home.
Right.
So $30 a night. Do the math, entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Come on, people. Like that money could be going towards your goals. Like when you say I have not enough time, I don't have enough money. Like I hear it all the time.
Right.
What do you mean you don't have enough money? You're spending it on poverty behavior, basically, is the way Grant Cardone's saying it. But I see shortcuts as this too. What drugs are you on right now that are shortcuts to a solution? Right? That's a big one. I think I'm stepping into some muddy waters there, right? Like.
So what drugs would you be referring to specifically?
Well, let's just say you're on something for antidepressants or you're on something for anxiety when that you're not actually working out and eating right and taking care of you clearly know
Well,
that.
you're not doing the
But the
work.
shortcut is you're not doing the work. So the shortcut is like, I'm going to just take this pill and keep going to work and just you do my regular thing. I'm getting by,
Mm-hmm.
right? That to me is like taking the shortcut, right?
Right.
You're like, it'll be too hard to do that thing. And this is way easier,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, it is easier, right?
Right.
But is it really serving you long term? I don't know. Anyway, so muddy waters.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe Grant put this on here. Government dependence.
Well, I think that's
I
huge.
mean,
I
if
mean,
you're
we've talked about that before, like the disability and stuff, like I don't know, we've known quite a few people that are on disability, and then it's like you get in this mindset because you can't,
the disability
yeah,
trap,
you
yeah.
can't make more money, so it's like if you're on disability and somebody wants to actually better themselves, it's like, oh, well, I can't go get a job because I'll get kicked off the disability. And then if I get really sick
Hmm.
again, it takes years to get back on it, or months. I don't know how long it takes. I think it takes a while, but
Right. The people we talk to, it's numerous people, by the way,
hmm
if you guys are listening, the reality is that when you get in the disability program, from the government, it's not an easy task. Sometimes you get rejected, then you get on, you feel like if I lose this, I'm done.
hmm
But the reality is, like she said, you're stuck. You're totally trapped. You can't grow past a certain point. And I see people all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, I have to get paid under the table when I do these side jobs and like whatever." And listen, it's happening. So, and they know that.
right.
But the fact is that that person wants to better themselves, but they want to take advantage of that government dependence. All it's doing is hindering you.
Right.
It's literally it's got a hook on your leg and you ain't going nowhere, sucker. You are never going to be a million. Well, that's certainly not a millionaire, because this is what he's saying. He's saying this isn't the top 10 or the 10 poverty behaviors that are going to make you be less than average, right? But he's saying you might be middle class but capable of being a multimillionaire, but living in middle class because of so many poverty behaviors, right?
hmm
So when I hear poverty, my mind went right down to the gutter, but that it still could be holding you back in the scale of things, right?
Oh, for sure.
So that's something to consider too, is that like, yeah, oh, I'm fine, I make good money, and yeah, but you're you could be doing better maybe. I don't know, just saying.
Right.
And what about not reading? What do you think Grant means by not reading? Is he saying
Not learning, I think.
clearly learning, right?
hmm
Because it's the information that you're getting from that
Yep.
reading, yeah.
hmm
And
Always be growing.
and I don't think, yeah, always somehow,
hmm
whatever the thing is. I think with Grant too, he came from a dark place. I don't know if everyone knows his story, but he was. I'm not even going to get into it because I don't want to screw it up. But he tells a story of drugs, and I mean, he's been down this road in the trenches, just like everyone else, right? And so he's telling you, like, listen, I had to like, give myself a smack and like, shake to have. And he's always complimenting his wife, like this woman, and like how she's motivated him and all the things that she's got him through. But because she helped him with the transformation of himself, right? She didn't do for him, right? Helped
hmm
him navigate that within himself. So the toxic people in your life, if they're not letting you change, like, no, you used to be so fun, when we would blah blah blah. Now you sit at home and read books and okay, well, I got a goal here, entrepreneurs, right? What I don't know what else you're doing it for. Serve your community, make money doing it. Come on.
hmm
That's the whole point, right?
Right.
The guy who just sells fruit is just the guy getting you fruit conveniently.
hmm
That's service and make money doing it. That's how we serve our community. That's the basic principle. And that's an entrepreneur sees an opportunity to serve its community, it steps up to the plate, and it's rewarded for it within the community. That's entrepreneurship. Do you want to play with this a little bit more? Because the last one I'm seeing here that really blows my mind, refusing to get outside one's zip code and travel. Okay, from Grant's Cardone's perspective, what's your take on what he's thinking there?
Well, I mean, I don't know what his take is, honestly. I don't know this Grant Cardone all that much, other than from what you've mentioned of him. But I know for me and, my beliefs is, you have to travel to break outside of your mindset. And it's limiting. I think when you don't travel, you have this misunderstanding of what the world is like, I guess. And then it also gives you appreciation, I think, because we really do have it really good here in America. You do travel other places, and not that everywhere is shitty or anything by any means, but
No,
a lot of
no.
times in a lot of places we traveled, I come back home and I'm like, God bless America. Like, we really have it good here.
Yeah. Amen. I know I've been right there with you on the plane. We look at each other. We're like, yeah, home sweet home,
Hmm.
right? America is a beautiful place. And this would be a perfect time for me to tell all these entrepreneurs out there, listen, if you feel like things are tough or it's hard or, being an entrepreneur or like getting out there and making this all a reality for yourself, that will teach, leaving this country will teach you how hard it is.
Right.
That's why these immigrants come here and slaughter it
Yeah, this is a
because
land of
they,
opportunity.
when they come here, they're like, what? Like, it's so easy,
Yeah.
right? And we're still struggling here, many of us, right? And so
Hmm.
it actually did that for me. I'm like, listen, if I can't do it in the States here, I don't know where, I don't know that I could do it where these people come from. They don't have the wherewithals and to
Hmm.
the capacity to do it. And
Right.
even if they're able, willing, capable, smart enough, reading all the books, their environment is just so stifling in so many ways. And I think when you see that, that mindset is what you're talking about. You're like, whoa,
Hmm.
yeah, I better get to work because I have all the opportunity in the world. And then you become grateful.
Yeah,
That's the moment of
absolutely.
being grateful. Yep.
But to
Yep.
to flip that though too, there's also the aspect of, in other countries they are more humble and they don't need all the luxuries and all the things that we have here. So
Mm,
so
love it.
it's
Devil's advocate. Yes.
it's kind of like maybe we are striving for too much here, but if you are striving for all these things and, the houses and the cars and all that, America is the place.
Amen. For real, right? But it is certainly isn't one of our current principles.
Hmm.
Lisa and I have both been on the journey of like acquiring and like buying and consuming, but we're by far over that journey. Like we went way past that and we went full on living out of 4 construction totes, traveling the world, almost just backpack life for years. And something that we learned from all that was that none of that stuff, it just does not hold value at
Hmm.
all, and which led us to where we are today, full service to our community and our entrepreneurs. It was a blessing for us to take that journey. But if you guys do want that, that's fine. If there's no right or wrong, I can just tell you there is a way more. There's a beautiful place beyond that. Maybe one day you'll find it yourself, find what we found. But you got to take that road. I think everyone has to at some point, like, kind of overconsume and play with their greed and their wants and their desires to realize, like, the nonsense, right?
Hmm.
Because you have to experience it, right? Am I wrong, listeners? Comment. Am I wrong when I say you got to kind of get burned yourself to really, really believe that Chad and Lisa are right about this? Because some people are like, yeah, they don't. You can just have all the and da. Listen, you guys have heard it all before. We're not the only people. There's a long stroke of people that tell you that like chasing that is not where it's at. The material
Hmm.
things, technically, right? So what we're talking about today, though, it being a millionaire, I think from our perspective, we coined this phrase years ago, but it was like being a minimalist millionaire, which is where you are efficient, right? So do you have things? Yes. Do you have things that you enjoy and bring you joy? Yeah. But you're not excess. You're not like I have 8 cars or 17 four-wheelers, but only 2 of us live here, right? 15 bedrooms, like just absurdity. So
Oh, if
uh,
if I'm going for 20 million, what am I going to do with all that money then?
somehow I think, Lise, I know this for a fact. We will find a way to serve the community, which is one of the things you're working on, one of your biggest projects. I'm certain it will fund it which is down the road of suicide, which is the story. And I could see you going, hey, 20 million, it's so worth it to me to go and make a real difference in this community of depression and suicide and mental health. It
Right.
would be, you would spend it in a second, right? So I think that's the level you need to be at. Like, is your money being spent and being used, in abundance, which is like where it just comes to you and it goes right back out, because you become that only the venue temporarily for that flow, because you're now in full service of the thing and now you're funding it to keep it alive and whatever. So I'm certain that would happen. Am I wrong?
I mean, probably not. No. I mean, you're probably right. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's move on, guys. There's a bunch more going on here, and so what we're covering, guys, in case you're just tuning in, is Grant Cardone put out that, was it top 10 list? What's the title again?
hmm Yeah. Top 10.
Top 10 list of things to help you
10,
become
10 steps to becoming a self-made millionaire.
All right, here we go. We're digging in pretty deep. Now we're getting to the third one. Go ahead and fire it off for us, Lise.
So study multimillionaires is
Sounds
the third one.
logical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Grant says, quote unquote, if you get a chance to spend 3 days with anyone who has accumulated 30, 40, 50, or $100 million, I promise you it's a game changer. Now, do I believe that? Absolutely. This probably goes back to his networking comment earlier,
hmm
right? What if
For
you bumped
sure.
into
Yeah.
someone like that and they told you one thing was the golden nugget that transformed everything? And you hear this all the time. I see people just like, oh, and I met Grant Cardone and he said, do blank, blank, blank. And this might be your aha moment right here. I listened to the
hmm
podcast and I never even heard of Grant Cardone, and all of a sudden his advice came through Chad and Lisa to me, and boom, my life was transformed, right? I started taking the steps
Right.
towards my goal. So studying millionaires however you can. So Lisa, before we were married, you actually were pretty wealthy. I don't know. I mean, we never really got into the full dynamic of your full wealth, but you basically were a millionaire for what, 7 or 8 years, or right?
Yeah, at least.
Right? And so,
hmm
what can you tell us then from that journey to where you are today? When he says study millionaires, what do you think you were doing that like somebody would have studied you, they would have saw?
Well, I think that's some of what we're going to get into that he talks about further down the line.
Okay,
But to some degree, it's working your butt off, really. Like
the
I
time.
worked a lot, a lot.
You're talking
I
sun
mean,
up to
I,
sundown, right? If not longer.
yeah, uh-huh. And I can't say that I totally agree with that anymore. Does that mean I'm not going to be a multimillionaire? Maybe. But, for me, it's not always about the money. So, I mean, could I do great things with the money? Absolutely. But, and for me, I think it's more do what you want to do your passions, and then, the money may be a byproduct of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So studying millionaires, I think what he's saying is that goes back to like learning, right? When he says study, I mean, we're
hmm
talking study. What are they doing?
Well, and I
Uh,
think, yeah, he's also referring to, investing, buying real estate and assets. So one
the
person that comes to mind,
wealthy
Warren
behavior
Buffett.
versus poverty behavior, right? Wealthy
Right.
behavior, right?
hmm
Habits. Let's
hmm
talk about that for a quick second. Alex Hermosi jokes about it, and I've joked about it before too. So I'm just throwing him in here too for fun because I love the dude to death. I mean, he inspires me all the time. But the reality is that you don't have to do exactly what all. You don't have to do the ice baths. You don't have to do all the mumbo jumbo to be
Thank goodness.
successful. Yeah, right. If that was all it took, we'd all be an ice bath. But the reality really is
Not
that
me.
you're like, I'll pass. I'll take the
Uh-huh.
I'll take the discount life. So I think why I'm bringing this up about the things you have to do and the habits you have to kind of play around with is when if you would how do I say this? So I looked into the statistics on how many people make 100,000 a year. I think it's like I want to say it's like 16%. I can't remember exactly, so don't quote me. If you guys know, please comment below. but it's a pretty low number that make even over 100,000, right? But everyone thinks everyone's a millionaire. Like there's millionaires everywhere. No, there's really only 16% of people roughly that are actual millionaires. So what
Millionaire or six figures?
or
I think you
six
said
six
six
figure.
figures
I
before.
did. Thank you for correcting
Hmm.
me. So it is six
Hmm.
figure, and I wrote it here in my notes. I don't know if I can find it really quick. But the reason I bring it up is because there's a percentage of people that are in this space. People assume there's more, and there's not. There's a lot of room for you guys to get out there and make a real difference. But at the same time, I think it's, what is it? 14% of the population has a six pack, a real six pack. What this means is when I say study millionaires, they have a different life. They think differently, they do things differently, they have different habits. Like everything about them is different because you can't do a millionaire can't just go to college, get a job and then millionaire. That's not how it works. They had to do a thing differently. They had to go off that path, entrepreneurship, to something that had an unlimited upside, right? You're not going to hit, if you shoot for the stars and land in the clouds, right? You're not going to hit those stars if you're not in something it's uncapped. Some of you are in
Hmm.
positions where you could work there your whole life and you will never be a millionaire. Never. Like it's literally not in the cards mathematically. And why do I say this? Because I was a carpenter for many years. Like that was where I actually loved being a carpenter. I loved building homes and everything. But soon I learned that I'm getting so good at what I do, and no matter how good I could be, super duper master everything carpenter, and there's only so much I can make unless I break out and become the entrepreneur, right? And so obviously I broke out, but then I soon realized that even that market share had a cap on it. And so you have to ask yourself, guys, do the math. If you make 60, 70, $80,000 a year, you think you're doing good? Do the math. Okay? How many years do you have to work to even make $1 million? Just to make it. That's gross. That's not what you save or come home with or none of that. And once you see that number, you're like, I could be here 10 years, not even make $1 million. So once you get your head around that, you'll realize entrepreneurship has a pretty good upside. It's worth the risk. It was for me. I'm like, if the upside is 10 years to actually make $100 million gross, entrepreneurship is my path. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to figure it out. And that was for me my transition, is just seeing the numbers and going, it doesn't make sense. I can't stay here. But I did it twice. As a worker bee, I realized there's a cap. I could do this my whole life and never break that cap. It's impossible. It doesn't exist. It would be a delusion for me to think it would. The next one was that the market I got into also had a cap. There was like top earners in that space. And so and I'm like, if I want to break that cap, I have to move out of that space. And so you have to kind of do that, I think. And what I think Grant Cardone's saying is someone who's a multimillionaire, they're thinking, hey, I don't want to put 10 years into a company that only has this much market share. And you see it on Shark Tank all the time. I'm not going to invest blank blank money because I won't get a return. There's not enough market share. You hear it all the time. Now, if entrepreneurs think on that level, right? And certainly multimillionaires do, because they're not going to sink money. Warren Buffett says there's some assets like Coca-Cola that if they gave them twice as much money, they wouldn't get twice as much return on it. They already know they can't even invest in Coke anymore. They can't give them any more money because Coke can't do anything with it.
Let's see here. So here's the next step. Grant Cardone shares 10 steps to becoming a self-made millionaire. So we've talked about several. The next one after study multimillionaires is work like a multimillionaire. And I
I don't know.
actually,
Hold on. I don't think people are ready for
hold
this,
on.
Lise. This is
So I
heavy.
want to kind of actually talk about the next couple all rolled up into one because I feel like they're all kind of related, kind of with the studying
Okay.
multimillionaires too. But I think so. There's work like a multimillionaire, move your spending to investing, and create multiple flows of income. So I think kind of all of these kind of are pretty related. So I want to discuss them all at the same time.
So when he says work like a millionaire, we're talking about, and he says, invest like a millionaire, think like a millionaire, study millionaires. What he's saying is embody the millionaire life,
Hmm.
right? I think, right? You're kind of do all things at that level. And I think that's kind of where he's going with it. So how would you kind of sum that up, or where do you want to
Well,
start
I
on
think,
that
how I had
topic?
mentioned a little bit ago about, working, that I worked a lot, when I was wealthy. When he mentions instead of working 9 to 5, you work from 5 to 9, that being 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. So, he's
Mm-hmm.
all about, working 100 hours a week. And he talks about, Elon Musk works 100 hours a week. I don't think that's something I'm interested in doing. So, yeah.
Again, again,
So again, my 20 million is getting further off into the distance.
right? Networking
Yeah.
and millions,
But, I mean, there are other things
or
too
our
that, I
time,
mean,
yeah.
we do practice, so, maybe I'm not going to work like a multimillionaire. I mean, although I do enjoy working, and to some degree, I guess, it comes with, if you're passionate about what your work is and what you're doing, then, are you working? So,
It doesn't even feel like work. Yeah, yeah.
right.
Well, I know with you,
And
when
I
he's
mean, even though like I'm not technically working, those, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., my mind is always constantly on what I'm working on
mm-hmm,
now, I guess. So I guess
right.
to some degree, that's
Well,
that's part of it. But
well, I'm going to give you some points and some credit right here. So when we were running the bookkeeping company and you were traveling the world and that kind of thing, you worked very little. I mean, maybe 15 hours a week for the first half of the month, right? So
if that, yeah.
yeah, so you weren't working a lot and easily making six figures, and so we were fine traveling the world. We had our assets and our real estate and things like that. But what the
Hmm.
reality, though, what I've noticed is now that we've taken on this new project, which is we have a bigger mission. It isn't just to like travel the world and do self work and just do stuff for our personal gain. What we're now in like where we want to serve at a much higher level, but I also think you have set your goals much higher. You've literally told me I'll never get up before 9. I like to get up whenever, and I've on numerous occasions you've got up pretty early, like 6 a.m., 5 a.m. to go to the gym so that you can get back in time to like really get to work and get stuff done. So it's not that you have to work 100 hours a week no matter what, because that's meaningless. But when there's a meaning behind
Hmm.
it and you need to work 100 hours, just do it. But when you don't have to do it, then don't do it. Don't just go to
Right.
work to go to work. And I think you're that person. You're efficient. You're not the busy girl. You don't like to stay busy. That's your superpower. Like when there's work to get done, you get it done. That's what's bookkeeping. You'd hammer out your accounts and then close your computer and we'd go to lunch. Like it
Hmm.
you didn't try to stay busy just so that you could say, "Oh, I worked on your account longer. I really worked hard on my company." You were just like, "I did what I needed to do for the day. I'm very efficient in what I do. I know there's nothing more that needs to happen and I don't have any things that are demanding at the time and everything's fine." So there's a happy medium, and honestly that's what we're all shooting for with our businesses is a place that we can help manage it in a healthy way, so maybe we can get some of that time back, right? Grant Cardone isn't the end all be all. We're just having fun with this and exploring our opinions versus his, and maybe you get something from either side. So let's play around with this multiple flows of income. When he says flows, I think he uses that word specifically for a reason,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
So
and, I mean, you kind of briefly mentioned it, when we were doing the bookkeeping, like we did have real estate, and, there was multiple sources of income coming
right,
in. But I mean, he talks about if you're a multimillionaire, you should have like over 100 different flows of income coming in.
right. And you
So,
don't start 100 businesses like tomorrow. You start one, you build it, you get back your time. You start one, you build it, you get back your
well,
time.
and yeah, but that's not even, it's not 100 businesses. It's, more passive, So
Ah,
investments.
yeah, investments, right? But streams
Hmm.
or flows, he calls them. Yeah, okay,
Right.
so good point, right? You don't even have, there are places you can just put your money and it will give you a return,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly. Put your
Yeah,
money
that,
to work for you.
yep, amen. Good deal. So,
Hmm.
what advice can you give people on this, Lise? Like, I know where I would say is I would start with, what we teach and how we do it, with our mentorships and coaching that we do for our students is first identify the thing that you want, right? And make sure you're doing what aligns with that, right? If you really want freedom, don't sign up for a business that's going to take 150 hours a week to complete, right?
Hmm.
That's not going to. And then remember that you the end
Well, I mean,
goal.
unless there is a big picture involved in that, right? I mean,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
if that path to multi-millions, you do have to work 100 to 150 hours to get there, and you do see that there's a way out and it is temporary. I mean,
Mm-hmm. But make sure there's a
go
way
for it.
out. A lot of people don't do that. You've seen people do this with like their lawn care businesses, and they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna start a lawn care business, and then I'm gonna have all this, I'll run my own business on my own, all this free time." It's like, no, I don't know that that's going to be possible for you because that's there's a lot of moving parts there to scale to multi-million dollar care business, right?
Well, I think
But
that's the thing too, is a lot of people starting their businesses get into it and they're essentially just creating themselves a job.
mm-hmm,
They're not necessarily building a business, and that's the difference. If you're going to build a business, you've got to have those systems and structures in place and make it scalable so that you can hire employees and have other people do things for you. And that's where the income becomes limitless, basically, versus, you start a lawn care business and you're the one out there mowing the lawns and you're like, oh, no one else can do it as good as me. And,
well, or even
like,
I talk to all the customers and you think you've moved up because you're not mowing the lawns. Oh, I just talk to the customers now and close the deals. Yeah,
hmm.
but you have to do that or else there's no work. You can't go on
Right.
vacation for a month because how are you going to close those deals or like that
Hmm.
you've signed up, so you have to get out of that position. The difference between
Yep.
business owner and entrepreneur, right there. That's a full, exact, perfect example. Have I been both? Yes. So I'm not as good as being an entrepreneur as I am being a business owner because most of what I thought or for me, I was just the business owner for so long. I was okay with it though, right? But I remember, like, I literally had to sell my construction business because there was no way it was going to align with like our remote lifestyle. Like it was not even going to happen. So that was how we learned that like if I'm going to do anything, it has to align with my end goal. And running a construction company was not going to align with that end goal. And so I've had to go down
Right.
this exact road, guys. Like if you're listening, this was my story. We've been there. And so now everything I'm doing aligns with my end game, right? It has to align or else why do it? I don't want to spend 5, 10, 15 years putting all my money, energy, and time into something that doesn't give me the end thing I wanted in the first place. So think about it from that perspective. So multiple flows of income. We won't get into the nuts and bolts of that, but for Lisa and I, the way that we do it, real estate, obviously, it's always been a big part of what we do. We'll never not do real estate more than likely. We run our coaching programs. Right now we're working on some affiliate programs as well because we have some products and people that we want to support as well and being affiliates because they do a great job. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. When people do a great job at what they do, like Pace Morby and Sub 2, like who are you going to compete with? The guy's just killing it. Why would why would I want to compete with him directly? Create a real estate program and coach people. I wouldn't. Like
Hmm.
he's got it figured out. So, but yeah, a couple different forms. I think eventually we'll probably have 5 or 6 by the end of 2024. That's the way I look at it. Different brands and avenues out there for income. What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we got what 3 right now, so yeah, I would easily double that next year. Because this is a year's in the making today, or this week, or month, or whatever. We're about a year in, so let's move on. Expand your network. That was part of it. I don't know about that one. I don't know where I would go with that.
Expand your network. So networking.
Yeah.
the one thing that I'm like, that scares me to death. I don't like that.
You well, okay, so here let me give you an example how Lisa networks. She marries me. Okay?
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
am the network. Okay? I am her cell phone to the rest of the world. So if she needs me to be somewhere, I go
Well, I
be
guess in
there.
that aspect, I'm being the business owner. I'm
That's
putting
right.
the systems and
Delegating.
structures in place and sending you out
There you go. Which
to do the networking part of the
I
job.
rely on you for systems and structures as well. So yeah, great team here. So never lose money though. Come on, Grant. Never lose money. Uh, duh. But
Right.
what?
So let's see what he says about that. So quit putting your money into things where there's a chance or even the slightest chance of losing your money. So he says to invest in yourself, your business, and real assets that produce cash flow over long periods of time.
That will
So
appreciate.
I would say he's probably referring to, maybe the infamous crypto. Um,
And real estate, because he says appreciate with no likelihood of losing money, such as real estate. Literally says it right there.
no, he's saying real estate to invest in real estate.
Oh, versus crypto.
Right.
Ah, I see where you're going with that. Yeah. So, because yeah, they're
Hmm.
the stocks even are just like crypto. Like, here's one thing I think many people don't. I didn't. So, by the way, when I say many people, I was part of the many. I didn't realize at one point that let's say I have $100,000. If I invest $100,000 into the S&P 500, I'm gonna maybe get a 7% return annually on that 100,000. But if I leverage that into an asset, right, like a piece of real estate, the total volume of that asset is going to appreciate at 7 to 10%, right? So I'm taking and leveraging that money into a way bigger asset, and then if it cash flows as well, the cash flow itself could be the same cap rate or annual return as the S&P 500. And here's the kicker. The S&P 500, you can lose all your money. In an asset like real estate, it would be really, 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 really hard to lose all your money, right?
Well,
That
I think the same with the S&P 500, though. I mean, I think it's, kind of, I don't know. I feel like those are somewhat on the same level.
no, I've heard of people losing shit tons of their retirement, and I mean,
Well, I mean, if you put all your eggs into one basket, yeah, like you pick one stock and yeah,
yeah,
my
okay,
sister
so
bought into Walmart at one point and, lost all of her money in Walmart,
I see what you're
way back
saying. If
in
it's
the
one
day.
stock versus like when you do the mix or something, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but I think that is where I was going with that. So, with the when you do like a stock, right? When you buy a stock, right? So you got to be real careful because you could lose everything completely. So
Right.
anyway, I think that's what he's talking about. Never lose money. And he's really just saying, hey, do the math, people. If you could lose, make sure there's a big enough upside, right? They call it risk versus reward. The risk is here. The reward better be, here, or you don't do the deal. You just don't.
Hmm.
So, and we do that in real
Yep.
estate all the time. If I put in $30,000 to do a flip and 10,000 at closing, that's 40K into the deal. I want to make minimum 50% return, cash on cash return, right? Within 90 or 100 days. I want that as my return. So I put 40K in, I want 20K out minimum. Hopefully I 100% cash on cash return, right? And with the sub 2 strategies and stuff, of course, you get no money out of pocket, use your credit card. You could get 500% cash on cash return technically, but we won't get into that. So make hard decisions. This is an Alex Hermosi one. So
So
what do
this
you?
one, he says, when things get tough, the successful make hard decisions quickly. So
Yeah,
make decisions
that is Alex
fast.
Hermosi too. Yeah, people spend a lot of time making decisions. Think about it. Okay, so I get people all the time talking about real estate all the time, right? And they're like, I want to start investing in real estate and I want to learn how to do it. Great, let's get started. Well, I want to think about it. What do you mean you want to think about it? How long have you been thinking about this? Well, I've been wanting to get into real estate for a couple years. Okay,
So this is
so one
also
more,
why I hire you.
yeah. So one more day, you need to think about it. You've been thinking about it for 2 years to start investing in real estate. Okay, so all of a sudden, one more day, it's gonna, oh yeah, the magical. No, either you do want, and so they spent 2 years wasting time. If they'd have just made that decision 2 years ago, they'd have three, four, five assets by now. But people waste their time not making decisions. A lot of times you make a decision, you lose, you just move on and you make another decision, you win. But you can't even get past the loss. You spend 2 years thinking about the decision that you make that you lose at. And then you could have lost and won already again. And so, yeah, I agree with Grant on this one. Make those decisions and move on. And I think a core part of that is how to make decisions comes from having your end game in place. Of course, it's hard to make a decision if you don't know where the piss you're going. Do I turn left or right? Well, I don't know where we're going. But if you knew where you were going, you go, yeah, that doesn't. Oh, do I need to buy a new truck for my construction company? Yes, because we're hiring new people. Very easy decision. But if I don't know we're hiring new people, I don't know. Should we buy a new truck? Right? So, and it happens in house flips too. If you're flipping a house and you know this, Lise, if we're doing a rental or a resale where we're going to put it on the market and flip it, if it's going to be a rental, the decisions aren't hard. It's like we're going to do baseline this, baseline that, average this, livable that, done. If we're going to flip it, okay, we got to step up the game. But if we don't know what we're going to do with it, we can't make any of those decisions wisely. So to make hard decisions, you need to have your end game in place. And then you can make all your decisions very easily, at least easier. Would you agree?
For sure.
Cool.
Or hire someone like you.
Yeah. Well, because that is my specialty, of course. Yeah. All right. So
There's a
never
business
quit.
idea for you.
Oh, thanks. All right. For all you listeners, man, if a business idea comes to you, shoot it our way, man. We'd love to hammer it out with you and kind of explore it, find out the possibilities, do the math, and maybe help you get to where you need to go. All right. Is this the last one?
It is.
Oh, dang. He saves the best for last.
So never quit or settle. So the super financially successful don't stop once they hit their targets. They simply reset and go again.
This could come back to that first part where you're setting your goals, right? This comes all the
Hmm.
way back circle around is like the Burr method. Buy, renovate, rent,
Everything's real estate
refinance.
for you, right?
Well, it's either real estate or rock and roll. You know, that's how all my analogies come from. So that's been my history. What do you want me to do? So never quit or settle. This comes back to having a big enough dream too, as well, right? Because if your dream's not big enough, you're like I said, you're just going to quit, right? If it
Hmm.
isn't so amazing and if you're not it's not worth dying for, like I'm going to go for this thing and climb Mount Everest and it's so important to you that you're just going to keep going because you'd rather die than not complete it. Right? So that's how big you need to dream, people. And why do you need to do that? Because you'll just quit. You'll
Right.
logically quit. Your logical mind will just say, it's not worth it, dude. Just turn back.
But I think there's also an
So,
aspect of quitting that's okay because a lot of people, they do have these big dreams. They're like, oh, I don't know, I can't even think of an example, but something they want to do. I want to start a lawn care business. Throw the lawn
no,
care
no,
business in
use,
again.
use my story, Lise, of being a rock star. Because I genuinely wanted to be a rock star, right? Like, that was
Yeah,
my
but I think
thing.
that's a different than what I'm saying though, because what I'm saying is like once you get in there, you realize, oh, that's not what I actually wanted. And I think it is
Mm,
okay. So I think you do need to be
I
okay to
think what
some
you're saying.
degree,
To cut the
um,
cord.
cut the cord, like, and knowing when that is. So, I mean, if it really truly is your dream, don't quit. But there are times when, something turns out to be different than what you thought it was going to be. And so don't
Sure.
just keep pushing forward, you know. when you,
I
excuse my
love your
French,
thought on
fucking hate
that.
it, like
Yeah.
you have to know when to quit at, to some degree at certain points in your life, I believe.
You know what? And then and he actually Grant actually says this. He says in this last one, never quit or settle. So that would line up with settling. Don't
True.
settle for it just because you started it. How
Hmm.
many times people say, "Oh well, I'm already in so deep." Well, that isn't the right answer in my book. And we've been there before, Lise. This has happened numerous times. We're like, doesn't matter how deep we're in, like just hanging on. And in the investment world, don't hold on to bad debt and use, or how do they say, don't use a good investment to feed a bad investment,
Hmm.
right? Just cut the
Right.
bad investment, right? Because if you feed this, the principle is that if you take a good investment and feed a bad investment, neither one of them are good. You lose both. So just
Right.
lose the bad investment and then keep the winning one and just go. I think that's a real. I love that you brought that up and kind of shed some light on the other perspective there, when to cut the cord, and cut the cord often, because you'll find your thing, guys. If you're like, you do it and you're like, it doesn't align with me, figure that stuff out. You might circle back, right? That does happen to people. How to it happens to people, but just keep doing your thing, man, and try to stay authentic along the way. That's a big challenge in a whole nother episode. Well, cool. We've been firing on all cylinders, Lise. I know. Thank you so much for bringing this topic to the podcast today. This was fire. I had a lot of fun. Ton of fun, actually. Maybe we can have Grant Cardone's articles on here again sometime. If you guys want to follow Grant, you know where to find him. The dude is 10x this and 10x that, and he does put some cool stuff out there. In fact, I'll leave you with a Grant Cardone quote. He says, if you gave me a brand new Ferrari, like $500,000 Ferrari tomorrow, what would I do with it? He says, I would sell it the next day for whatever I can get for it. But I think in his quote, he says, for 250,000, and I take all that money and put it in real estate. Because the actual value of that asset at 400 will easily be compensated with an investment, even if you took a portion of it and took the loss. That would be him cutting his losses. This would be a good example, right? Cut the bad investment and move all that money to a good investment. Perfect example of what we just proposed. That car is not going to serve him in his long-term goals. There it is.
Yes. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us on another amazing episode of Fire Your Boss Friday. Guys, I hope you got a lot out of this. Lisa and I had a lot of fun. We're going to hopefully do a lot more of these. This is something we were toying with today, and we decided this is it. This article is where we're going to give it a shot. So if you like what we did today and kind of played around with our opinions on these articles, and you want to learn about something specific, maybe reach out to us, comment, somehow get to us, social media, whatever it is. We'd love to hear from you and see, like, what you guys want to kind of hear from us, our opinions on things. We would be happy to dive in deep. All we really want from you guys is to steal your lives back, fire your bosses, and live a life full of purpose. Hopefully we're embodying our rebel yell on every episode. Until next time, Lisa and Chad, over and out.